narrative. And I think that is what is changing gradually. We are now becoming more conscious of the fact that as much as you are doing the work behind the scene, you need to tell the story the way it is, so that more people will become more enlightened, and also you could encourage younger people. And I think this is the first time I'm accepting a podcast.
Wow, thank
so,
you.
so okay, because for people that will watch it, I'm apologizing again. You know, most times people reach out to me who want to have a podcast, and most times the timing is not always convenient. But this time I just said, okay, I need to just do something differently, like come up for your podcast, let's talk.
Thank
And
you.
maybe I know somebody's watching, maybe subsequent one I'm going to accept subsequent podcasts, but this is the first podcast I'm accepting, and I think it's a privilege for me being joining you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Because one of the main reasons why I do this is also for that reorientation. Because there's just a lot of Nigerian or African youths that still think of agriculture as cutlass and hoe. Still think
Okay.
about it as the drudgery part. Like, oh, like if I become an agriculturist, I'm going to end up in penury. Like, and meanwhile, there's that part of the story, but there are also people that are earning well, creating impact, making lives better through the solutions that they are providing with their work within agriculture. And I was saying to someone the other day that I think that, technology in itself, when people talk about tech, it's an enabler. Things should
Yes.
have been on ground that technology will then propel, amplify, or make it much more, right? There are
Yes,
some
definitely.
basics that cannot go away. But if people don't
Yeah.
even know that, oh, there are people that are, young and they are thriving within the space, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And, there are people studying agriculture right now in universities. They're already planning on how to become a customer service rep at the bank. They're already planning it. Like, I'm going to face oil and gas, I'm going to face the bank, I'm just going to go learn data analysis and put my head somewhere. Meanwhile, even with the same data analysis you're going to learn, or there within agriculture, you can use that. Because I was talking to someone the other day, even within traceability, oh, using data to make decisions. So thank you, Mr. Olarewaju, for coming on
Welcome.
our podcast today. I'm
You're
just going
welcome.
to read I'm just going to read out your bio and then we'll start out the conversation. I
Okay,
typically
you
read
have
out
my
the
back.
bio, yeah, so that people get to know who the guest is. Like, this man is an authority, he's a thought leader. Please listen to what he has to say. He has over 13 years of experience in this space, so it's not a little thing. So Mr. Babatunde Olarewaju is a distinguished agricultural strategist, a thought leader with over 13 years of impactful experience driving sustainable growth and innovation within African agricultural sector. His work cuts across multiple domains, including agribusiness, advisory, gender equality, inclusiveness, food safety management, sustainable agriculture, value chain development, and strategic project design and execution. He is the lead strategist at FutuX Agri-consult, a pioneering private agricultural extension firm operating in Nigeria and in Togo. Babatunde plays a pivotal role in shaping the company's vision to become a continental leader in agricultural consulting and sustainability service. For the past 8 years, he has spearheaded initiatives that focus on agro-business planning, optimizing farm for market systems, strengthening agricultural value chain, and embedding gender-sensitive approach with food system. Mr. Babatunde is passionate about empowering farmers, youth, agripreneur through knowledge transfer, ethical production practice, and climate-smart solutions that enhances productivity while protecting the environment. His expertise in gender his expertise in gender leadership has enabled him to build a resilient community that promotes inclusiveness and growth. With a round of applause, guys, I welcome Mr. Lansford today. Just hearing reading your bio and listening to it, I was like, man, this man has done so much impressive work. And I
Thank
believe
you.
that you are the most capable person to speak to us today on the topic of the strategist lens, how to design and execute high impact agro projects in Africa. It's not like we're not having projects, but how to design and then execute and then see that it gets the kinds of results that was intended for it to sort of have. So my very first question at this time is, you have designed several successful agricultural projects across Nigeria and across Togo. What would you say are like the key factor that has always, that you've always considered before launching a new agro initiative within the African context?
Okay, thank you so much. Uh, your name Osaru Goe, right?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Osaru Goe. Thank you so much. One key thing that we look out for when we are starting a project, which is the what is so much important, is the need of the people.
Mm,
Sometimes when we say the need of the people in project development, people think that when they go to a community, especially agriculture is being practiced mostly in the rural community. We get
yes.
there and we see, oh, there is no electricity, there is no
Mm,
potable water, good boil water or water, there is no potable waters. People are living in darkness, people are suffering. Therefore,
mm-hmm.
let's give them electricity because this is their need. Let's
Yeah.
develop water, let's give them potable water, this is their need. But in the real sense, that might not be their need. So there's a
Wow.
need, there's a passive need that I see as an outsider, thinking that
Mm-hmm.
I want to help rural people.
Yeah.
But there's a real need they see for themselves that they need to make their life better. So when we talk
Yeah.
about developing projects, we need to get to a point where the interests of the people who are the beneficiaries and the
Yeah.
interests of the donor organizations meet. And that is
Mm,
when you can develop a successful project. Now,
mm, mm,
when you see a lot of projects, there are a lot of projects. I can give you one project. I've worked in about 28 states in Nigeria. Now,
wow.
if you are moving towards from Kaduna, if you are driving from Kaduna to Katsina, the
Mm,
capital, you see some project by this left hand side. I've forgotten the name of the community. They call it wind farm. It's a wind farm. So you
mm,
see they generate they want to generate the plan was to generate electricity using wind. So you see
mm.
some they install this the windmill.
Yeah.
And the story behind that project was that after they've installed the windmill, they realized that the wind in that location was not enough to actually power. And you ask
Wow.
yourself, was there a visibility study conducted before even developing that project? And that project,
Mm,
when you see that project, it's actually billions of naira that have been spent on the project but
wow.
was abandoned. Now, that is, there was a need. The people that conceptualized the project, they saw a need of generating electricity with using the windmill, giving it to the community, and maybe the remaining power giving it to the nearest community or villages. So, but there was no alignment. So there must be an alignment, which is
Mm,
the need. So the perceived need of the outsider most time is not aligned with the perceived need of the beneficiaries. And at the end of the day, when the project is being conceptualized, is you implement the project, there is no sustainability. You go to
yeah.
the southwest region, you will get to some locations, some community in the southwest, you realize that the bore water they did for them, they've abandoned it. Nobody is using it again.
Mm,
You realize that the solar borehole they did has been abandoned. Nobody is doing it, using it again. And the villagers has gone back to the river where they were fed, where they were using before, and they are using it now. So these are the
wow.
problems. So when we don't really get to the point where we the needs of the people meet the needs of the project, there is always a problem. However, we can get to that point, and that is the essence of the stakeholders engagement we do before we conceptualize. And the stakeholders engagement is one of the means to collect data because
Mm,
where needs, because for us to get real needs, we need accurate data collection. And we
Yes.
have different means which we collect data. One of it is the stakeholders engagement, where you engage the people, the community leaders, different stakeholders, you bring them together to really understand what they really need. And also we have this very wrong mindset. I studied rural sociology. I understood the rural people, their needs, sometimes their psychology. Now,
Yes.
you see an evaluator going to the community, the first thing you think is that these people are not educated, which is true. Because they are not educated, you think these people do not have the right knowledge to solve their problem. I don't want to use the
Mm,
wrong word. Sometimes we feel that they are daft, which is the
mm,
worst mindset to think about the people living in the community. So because of that, we feel that we are savior. We want to save them, and we
mm.
try to push our own philosophy, our own
Yeah.
thinking about their needs. So the first thing
Yeah.
is getting the right information. It should be a bottom up approach. They are the one
Yeah.
deciding this is what our problems are. Now, they
Yeah.
always have plenty problems. Out of the plenty problems they have, which one is priority? Listen to their story.
Mm,
And that is where we have case studies in the community. Listen to their story. And also, beyond what they are speaking, there are unwritten words that you need to learn.
yes.
So from there, you will be able to now say, okay, this is your needs. Agree with them. And so, in developing any high impact project, the key element is
Yeah.
agreeing with the needs of the people that
Yeah.
actually align with the interests of the donor. Without
Mm,
this first element, every other subsequent element cannot really work. We
mm.
collect data. When you collect the wrong data, you make the wrong assumptions. And like the
Yes.
one I gave you example, you implement the
Yeah.
wrong project. And at the end of the day, you waste resources. There are several
Yeah.
projects that sometimes I don't want to mention names, but there are several projects that when you go to the rural community, they are littered around, failed projects.
Mm,
And the reason it's failed because it's not sustainable. Like for
mm.
instance, you are implementing a project where you need generator to power the borehole, like generator has to pump it every month. And this is a
No.
community that is about 200 kilometer, or some are like, don't let me say 200, that's an exaggeration, maybe 40 kilometer from where they are selling the filling station. So
Hmm.
it simply means that they have to travel at least 1 hour plus or 2 hours to get fuel. So
Yeah.
after the government have installed it, who pays for the fuel they are supposed to use to power it? As time
Yeah.
goes on, they will abandon it and everybody go
True.
back to their river. So you need to understand the needs and also understand the reality of the people living in the rural community. I think let me stop here. So first thing I
Wow.
mentioned is the needs.
Wow. So they have to be some sort of alignment of the understanding the people's needs and then aligning the needs with like what the stakeholders also have in mind. So they have to be that congruence in
Yes.
approaching the design of the and I think that this thing just it works not just so I can have a perceived need that people have, and that's different from what they actually want as their need,
Yes.
what they think
Yes.
would be useful to them. So it's not about me. It should be
No.
about the people I'm trying to
Them.
provide the solution for. Wow.
Them.
Wow.
Yes. It's like
Good.
I have a community. I visited a community on Friday. They don't have electricity.
Hmm.
It is not their need. They don't see it as a need. That's it. The electricity, they
Wow.
don't see it as a need. So when we listed what are the things they wanted, there were some other things they listed as their needs. So as far as
Mm,
electricity, they do not see electricity as a need. Giving them electricity is actually a good thing. But for us to get to that point where we give them electricity, we need to change that mindset until they see a need in electricity. But if we go
mm,
ahead and provide electricity, if anything happens to that, whether we are giving them solar or we are giving them transformer, or if anything happens, nobody will do anything. Let me give you one typical story. I won't mention the state, nothing. So they gave electricity to this community, this rural community. They gave them, access to electricity, which is very good. However, after 2 months, 3 months, they start giving them billing like they have to pay for electricity.
Yeah.
But these are people that they cannot afford, the income they generate in a year is not even enough for them. Now you've given them additional costs. So how
Mm.
do they pay for this additional cost? That became a problem. So as time goes on, after 1 year, the electricity guys, the organization spearheading, they have to cut them off the grid because
Mm.
they don't need it. They can't pay for it. So this is the reality. So if
Mm.
they cannot afford the electricity because it comes with a cost, who pay for the cost? The government, as we know, cannot continuously pay for it because the government is not buoyant enough. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why whenever we want to implement a project, we need to understand what is our reality.
Mm.
How can we sustain it?
Mm.
And it's needs are perceived needs are different and it's very
And actual
subjective
needs.
also. Yes,
Yeah. Wow. So even as much as we look at the need, we are also thinking of about sustainability. Because the person that is funding the project will not always be there to keep pouring funds into it. But how do we see that there's a continuity of the solution that we have provided? Wow. So
yes,
that also has to be in mind as well. Fantastic.
yes.
So I know you've touched a bit on this, but I want a bit more specifics. So my next question is, in your own experience, what makes an agricultural project truly impactful just beyond yields and profits? And how do we measure the real value at the community level?
Wow. Real impact.
Yes.
When we talk about impactful,
Mm.
one key thing we need to understand is how has it helped in African context, in the
Yeah.
African context, how has it helped to address critical challenges at the community level? For instance, how has the
Mm.
project reduced the poverty rates?
Yeah.
How does this project help to reduce gender equality? How has this
Mm.
project help to improve the quality of life of the
Yeah.
people? That is when
Yeah.
you can say a project is very impactful.
Yeah.
Now, when you want to reduce poverty rates,
Mm-hmm.
what you are trying to do is either you are creating more jobs that the people are well paid, not underpaid, well paid,
Mm.
or you are helping the farmers or the rural people to increase their revenue or income.
Mm.
That is when you could say, okay, you are reducing poverty rates. And
Yes.
that's where your project can be impactful.
Mm.
And impact itself is I put it into more of sustainability metrics.
Yeah.
There is your economic perspective, there's a
Mm-hmm.
social perspective, there's environmental perspective, and the fourth one, how has it built resilience? So these are like the metrics. It is metrics for sustainability, actually, I mentioned. So these are the
Yeah.
metrics that I actually have adopted to even measure impact. So
Mm.
impact is term of has it created more economic opportunities for the people there? So how many more people has it created more economic opportunities? So there we talk about most times, I have been writing a letter to my farmer for the past 5 or 6 years now. It's a weekly article.
Yes.
One
Yes.
thing I
Yes.
always talk about economic opportunities. You see me use the word. If you read my letter well, I use the word shared prosperity. See,
Yes.
economic opportunity is not about only in out of 100 beneficiaries, only 2 people could say their life has become better since after the project. So that is
Mm.
not a shared, that we can't say that is shared prosperity. Shared
Yeah.
prosperity is when you see the majority of people, maybe
Yes.
60% or 70%
Percent.
of
Yes.
people could say, oh, from the economic opportunity created by this project, we've been able to benefit from it. So that is what we call shared prosperity. It goes
Yes.
round. It's not just for
Yeah.
some few people. In terms of social, it has it created more opportunities for women, vulnerable group. You know, you
Yeah.
see in a project that it's only the older people that benefit from it. Women don't
Yeah.
benefit from it. The youth don't
Mhm.
benefit from it. People living with disability are excluded. So if we are talking
Mhm.
about impactful, it must be able to show that there is more of gender equality, there is more of
Yeah.
fair wages, there is more of
Mhm.
equitable society being created as a result of
Yeah.
our project. You know, that is an environmental. As a result of this project, for a project to be impactful, how has it impacted the environment? Has it
Yeah.
created more harmful environment? Has it negatively impacted the environment? Has it promoted biodiversity? Has it
Yeah.
created destruction of, pollution of the environment? So this
Yeah.
is what we can say a project is impactful. But in the context of developmental projects or development project, an impactful project is a project that meets its outputs and outcomes. We want to
Mm.
train 20 people. That's the output. We train 20 people. It increases. So
Mm.
that's the impact. But the real impact is when we can say the life of people, the quality of life of people has improved. So that is what we
Yeah.
say an impactful project, an high impactful project. And in there are projects that have been that have been impactful in Nigeria, even in Africa. We talk about Mastercard Foundation project. They are
Yes.
they've invested so much in Africa economy.
Yeah.
Trying to protect, to provide decent work for youth and women.
Yeah.
And because they saw opportunity there, because our strength is in the population of our youth, which are women and
Yes.
men. So
Yeah.
they've invested so much, and you can see the project in different countries. You could see in
Yes.
Soilless Farm. You could see it
Yeah.
in ITA under the I
Yes.
Youth program.
Yeah.
These are impactful projects that you could see. Okay. So for me, we need to go beyond just achieving output and outcome to what happens
Mm.
at the community level. In the next
Mm.
5 years, 6 years, after the project, will this impact still be felt? That's where
Mm.
sustainability comes. How have we built resilience in a project that even
Mm.
after the funding stop, this project can continue to give the benefits of what is intended to achieve. We continue to
Mm.
enjoy the benefit of the project even after 10 years. So for me,
Yeah.
that those are what we could say they are high impactful projects. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Babatunde. Truly, 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 you're helping us actually see things from a strategist lens right now and just helping us understand the actual context. Because sometimes the way a person might feel like, okay, we have done a bit of work, okay, that's good, but there are actual standards and metrics that should be looked out for in terms of like projects, and we then say,
Yes.
okay, this project has been, impactful. So my very next question is, we've also seen that there are many developmental projects that struggles with like sustainability after donor funding ends, right? How can African agro project be designed to remain self-sustaining, like you mentioned, in the long term? Because of something you just said, like, okay, 5 years down the line, what do we have? Are we still able to? Are we still at the level where we left the project, or it has even improved, or it has even declined? So my question at this time is, how can African agro project be designed to remain self-sustaining in the long term?
Should I be politically correct?
No, be factually correct. Oh.
You
If
want
we've
me
not gotten
to
to the standpoint where if we've not got, if as a continent or as a country, speaking as in Nigeria with in context, we've not gotten to that place where we are in any way practicing self-sustainability in terms of like project wise. You can also mention if it's something that we are progressively working towards, you can also mention, so yeah.
Okay, I will say this, not off record now, on record, is that donor funded projects is very good. Very good.
Yes.
Okay, I think we are back now,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah, donor funded projects are very good.
Mm-hmm.
They have created opportunities for African countries, but
Mm-hmm.
they cannot sustain the growth of Africa because they are time
Mm-hmm.
bound and
Yeah.
they have their own interest. The
Yes.
project that gives sustainability to us in Africa are projects developed by Africa and for Africa, and we use our resources to achieve them.
Mm.
See, it's we should tell ourselves the truth. The future of
Yeah.
Africa lies in we Africa being able to use our own resources because we believe in
Yes.
Africa. So when we
Yes.
cannot use our own resources for our own development, it's simply and looking for other countries or continents to provide aids for us to develop Africa. I don't think we really believe in Africa. So the
Mm.
first thing is how can we develop our own project and fund our project for our own development? So
Mm.
for any project to be self-sustaining, it must be a project that actually understand the future of Africa.
Mm.
Nobody understand the future of Africa than Africans. We need to chart
Yes.
our own paths. We need to chart
Yes.
our own course. And when we chart
Yes.
our own course, our own path, then we need to use our resources to achieve it. And that is the
Yes.
reality.
Mm.
Yes, donor funded organization project is good. Yeah, they are good. They provide some support, humanitarian services, and the like, but they cannot sustain our development. They can't.
Mm.
So it's for me, is for me, we need to develop ourselves with our resources. So we
Yes.
can develop a project that, okay, this is Project Africa. In the next 10
Mm.
years, we want to bring 100 million people out of poverty. And this
Mm.
is the blueprint. And this is the
Yes.
resources for us to get there. You know,
Yes.
consciously, it is our money, it's our
Yes.
resources,
Yes.
when we can use it for it. But it simply means after 10 years, if we don't achieve it, we can easily go back to the drawing table and say, okay, this is what went wrong. This is how to achieve it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it is our interest.
Yeah.
So every donor project has interests. Nobody,
Yeah.
there is no free money anywhere. You see, yes,
Mm.
there is no free money. It's a business. I'm not,
Yeah.
that's why I'm not talking from the perspective of victimization. I'm talking from the perspective of business transaction.
Yeah.
If I own a, if I own a house
Yeah.
and I don't furnish the house, and I'm expecting somebody outside to help me furnish the house that I'm living to my
Mm.
own taste, nobody does that. The
Yes.
outsider will rather furnish my house based on his own personal interests, based on
Yes.
his own thought, specific thought about me. So
Yes.
for me to furnish my own house to my own taste, I have to use my resources to achieve that. So
Mm.
we need to get to that point where project you can see project meets the interest, or the project goals meets the interest of our own plan, our own blueprint. And that is
Yeah.
why I look forward to a plan, a development or strategic plan that will be developed by Africans or by African countries using their own resources. Nobody is up. I don't want to be that. I want to develop our 20 years plan and we are still sourcing for the resources to develop our own plan. So we need to
Mm,
get to that point where
mm,
Africans can develop their own plan with their resource because they believe in it. So that is
mm,
where we can actually be self-sustaining because
mm.
we know the consequences of not achieving those plans.
Yeah.
So that is my own point of view. I'm not being politically correct this time.
No, but I thank you for bringing that to mind with how you just sort of answered that question. Personally, I've never really thought about it like that, and now it makes a lot of sense to me. Early in the year when the USAID thing was put in hot for a while, there was a lot of pandemonium just happening, and people were like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey!" So now, just hearing you answer this, it now makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense to me. But speaking of that kind of strategic and blueprint thing, I think it's something that should be in motion within, whether it's on a country level or on a continental level as well. Because the truth is, just like you said, it's not going to be the funding from donors will not going to be in perpetuity. It's going to get to a point and they're like, as long as their own agenda has been achieved, they'll leave you hanging. So you have to then proactively think for yourself as a people, as a country, as a continent. We have to proactively think for ourselves. Wow. Thank you for bringing that to mind. And really, I think that when we have that plan, there's something that comes with like ownership mentality. Like, this is our own, this is what we have to do. And so at that standpoint, with that kind of mindset, we'll try to see how to make it work. Even
Yes.
though the timeline is exhausted, we can go back to the drawing board, like you mentioned, and say, okay, where did we get it wrong? Okay, how do we move towards this? What do we do better on this? Wow. Just hearing this now, man, this
You
strategic
know,
lens you're helping us to see through is making me think too much now.
one thing, uh, anytime I go to Europe, you
Hmm.
know, there is something they always say that makes me feel so motivated. It makes me feel so proud of them. And this is it. You see a project, you see an average citizen saying, wow, this is taxpayer money. Our government is not doing the right thing. Why are they wasting taxpayers' money? This is a common language in Europe.
Hmm.
They make it known, they make it obvious. So because of that, the government don't just play with taxpayer money because they
Yeah.
have to be accountable to taxpayer money. In Africa, it's different. We
Yeah.
hear we did this for you. We are doing this for you. The government is providing this for you. No, it is
Mm-hmm.
taxpayers' money. So
Yeah.
so when we start spending, seeing these resources as this is our resources, we cannot afford to lose it. People work for
Mm,
it. It's the sweat
mm,
of people. Let's use our resources into what we believe. Nobody's
yeah.
going to develop us. I'm still saying it.
Mm,
Nobody's going to save us in Africa. And that is
yeah.
why our food sovereignty is very important.
Yeah.
We need to be food sovereign. It is very important for Africa as a continent. Nobody is going to help us to end hunger.
Yeah.
Nobody. Nobody is going to reduce child mortality or maternal mortality. No
Mm,
matter the funding, it cannot help us to end it. And that is why we need to proactively
yeah.
plan our growth and sustainable development. And that is the reality right now. So, and
Mm,
that is why
wow.
the coming generations, we need a
Yeah.
lot of work to do. So it's yes, Africa do not have
Yeah.
enough resources right now. Yes, but we have the resources in the land. And that is why we need to
Yeah.
think differently. And I'm saying it, no continent, no country is going to help us to solve our critical problems. If
Yeah.
we don't sit down as a as a country, as a nation, as a continent to solve our problem, to provide, you know, to provide the right plan for our
Yeah.
future, we'll still continue to struggle.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
reality.
Wow. Mm. It takes my mind to, I think it's a quote that says, if it must be, then it's up to me. So if it
Yeah.
must be that we are sovereign, food wise, it's up to us.
Yes.
I think that, donors funding would help kickstart it, but we have to have that mindset like, okay, this is our thing, this is our country, this is our continent. And we have to have that ownership mentality towards it. If not, just like you mentioned, I think that sovereignty thing for us in terms of food and even development is still far ahead. It's just it's just far ahead. Wow, wow, wow. This has been a very insightful. Honestly, this every time I have these conversations with experts, from different. Okay, go back.
Hello. Okay. Okay,
Can
we
you
are
hear
back
me?
now.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I can hear you now.
at some point you hear an expert say this in your mind. Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I think this is the challenge. Then you now hear another expert say another, like, that thing I thought was the challenge is not the challenge. Is the secondary version of the challenge. This is the real primary
Yeah.
challenge. Oh my God. Oh, God will help us in Africa. And we
You know,
Africans will help
there are
ourselves as well.
like most times we see, some in Africa, maybe I should stop saying Africa. Let me bring it to our own country. So there are
Nigeria.
symptoms, there are root in
Yeah.
Nigeria. So we have
Yeah.
symptoms. So we look at the symptoms. For instance,
Mm,
people are not people. For instance, we say poverty.
mm-hmm,
Poverty is a symptom of something. It's still a symptom. It's a
mm,
sign.
mm,
There's a problem. There's a root cause of it. People are not
mm,
eating well. Poor nutrition. It's just a symptoms. They are
mm.
underlying causes. There are root causes there. So
Yeah.
we do not address the symptoms. I'm having headache right now does not mean that headache is a symptoms. It could be
Mm,
anything. The root cause of the headache is something. So
yeah.
we need to address the root cause and see. We cannot. We shouldn't be doing fire brigade approach to food
Mm,
insecurity in Nigeria. Everything we do is fire brigade. Right now, let me give you one of the things that I always say every year. NIMET has already predicted some states, some locations that are prone to flood.
blood.
Rain is
Yes.
about to start. There is nothing we are doing. The flood will start. People will lose
Mm,
their life, lose their livelihood. This is
yeah.
the same way we do it every year. We can't get the right result. So we need to be more proactive.
Yeah.
Food security, no matter how many times we pray in a day, food security pray does see, like my friend Samson always say, he said hunger is not seasonal. That is why
Mm,
food production cannot be seasonal. See,
yeah.
hunger, prayer does not cure hunger. It is
Mm,
food.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
prayer does not cultivate crops.
Yes.
People do it. And that is why we need a plan. We need a plan, a strategy that we can say in the next 15 years, we can become food secured as a nation. We can say in the next 30 years, I know we cannot be food secure in the next 5 years. It's not possible. Our problems are numerous. But we need to
Yeah.
say we want to be food secure in the next 20, 30 years. This is what we need to do every year to achieve this for the next 30 years. These are the resources we need. This is how we are going to mobilize our resources. This is where we are going to fund to get these resources to fund it. This is the
Mm.
where the people need to sacrifice to fund this. And that is that is how we can actually journey towards food security.
Mm. Wow.
Right now, we are on any mode that you say we are on.
In God we trust. In God we trust. That's where we are in right now. But I like how you put it. Like I think that we are at that point where there's a need to actually face the reality and be factual with these things. And more importantly, like you said, there needs to be a strategic plan, a strategic blueprint that collectively as a people and as a nation we are working towards. We might not get there in the stipulated time within the plan, but at least let some things be, let there be a difference from where we are now. And let it just be evident that we are working with something. And I think just having that strategic plan, like you mentioned, or the blueprint, will sort of give people even hope because, okay, we're working towards something. And we're seeing like glimpses of change. And so we can still maintain that attitude towards that direction as against not having any strategic plan at all. Okay. I hope that policymakers and government officials will hear this and then consider that. I
Absolutely.
tremendously.
You know, I said that. I'm the one that said that, but I know some of our viewers right now who look like about today. Do you know what you are saying? Yes, I know that it will be very difficult, to achieve the strategic plan, you know,
Yeah.
because there is one infrastructure that we have failed to have. And,
Mm,
everything is always what would have helped us for our strategic plan would have been a very good and reliable data. We
mm,
do not have a good and reliable data that we can fall on to
mm,
analyze what is the risk situation of the country.
mm.
And it is a ripple effect. Yes, for us
Yeah.
to have a blueprint, we need quality data. We need to be
Yeah.
able to say what has been the problem.
Yeah.
This is the data. We can analyze, we can
Mm,
identify key things. I think it starts from
mm.
that conversation of having the right data, policymakers having the political willingness to
Yeah.
make the most difficult policies that will take us through this plan. And the resources. Even
Mm-hmm.
when we have subsequent government, new government, we can say let's hold ourselves accountable. Nobody's coming and saying no, I'm starting all over again. No, we are continuing. So
Mm,
that is what we need in the country.
mm.
Data. Right now, we don't even know how many farmers we have in Nigeria. We don't even have
Oh
that idea.
my
Yeah, they
God.
still have
Oh my
millions.
God.
You know, we have millions
You
of farmers in Nigeria.
what? You are going into dangerous waters now. Dangerous waters.
Yes,
Oh
but
my
we
God.
need to talk. See, we need to
Dangerous
come to the
waters.
point where we can identify our root cause. What is the real root problem?
Yeah.
We don't even
Yeah.
have data. How
Mm.
many farmers? We don't even have no the total number of farmers cultivating in crops, different crops and livestock in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yes, we have some pocket of data from NGOs because those are the people that really have data. It's
Yeah.
NGOs, they do different. We have data of those, but a centralized database, we don't have it. So
Mm.
how do we plan for our growth when we don't even know the total number of farmers producing food? See,
Mm.
and that is where we start from before we now get to the blueprint. You need to get to
Mm.
that infrastructure where we can say, okay, we need data to plan for our growth. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
data, I mean the data that we need, starting from number. It's like You don't know where are the farmers, where are they located, how many farmland are we cultivating, where are they, how many livestock do we have, like the
Yeah,
current livestock where we have in the whole of the country.
yeah,
We have estimated one, but where are they? So we need
mm,
those data to make plan for our future. Without
yeah,
data, all the plan I've mentioned so far is just in vain. We just continue like that.
mm,
So is our reality. I'm not saying that because of we lack this, we cannot grow. No, we are going to grow. We are growing. We are
yes.
not growing. Everybody is
Ah,
feeling it
well,
that we are growing.
we are doing things. You have been an expert and thought leader for 13 years, and I think you should have seen a lot of things that would made you sort of say, "Oh, why am I doing this?" But still, you are in it. So that means there's hope for us. And I think just
Definitely.
speaking about the data part, I think that could also be like maybe the first phase of the execution of that project. I think I would want to think about it like that.
I agree
If
with
we're
you.
saying
I
like
agree with
a 20-year plan, if we're saying like a 20-year plan, can we use the first 3 years and then say we divide it geopolitically and let's gather those data comprehensively. Let's be sure of what we are saying. That's like the first phase of the execution. Is just getting data. So it's also part of the plan. And I think this data thing is like a very serious issue because the very first person I had on the call on this podcast, I will never forget Uh, Mr. Ademola. He's an agro extension person for over 20 years in Lagos. He has worked in different establishments and stuff. And I said to him that I studied agric-economics in university. I don't think I have seen, I was saying, sir, are there extension workers working in this country? I was like, I don't think I have seen it. I studied it, but I don't think I have seen it. He's like, yeah, they are. I was like, eh. He still talked about this data thing, that there was a time that a couple of persons wanted to do a project. They had come in from Canada and they had asked for data of certain farmers and cooperative union. And the person heading the union could not give a factual data of the number of people. And that's how that project did not hold. And I was just like, if you say these are your people, why don't we have a list of their names? And it's just like that's one of the big issues that we have. And so I
I don't
I,
think
I agree with that.
I
I agree with that. I agree with that. Anyways, so my next question
yeah.
to you at this time is how do we sort of ensure like the voices of smallholder farmers, especially women and youths, are heard and integrated during the project planning stage?
I didn't get that, please. The network is
Okay,
fluctuating.
all right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. I said, how do we ensure that the voices of smallholder farmers, especially women and youths, are heard and sort of integrated during the project planning stage?
Uh, we talk about inclusion. Hmm?
Mm.
Inclusion is very important. I think we should just talk about it in theory. See,
Ah, in practical.
patriarchy system is patriarchy system is still a big problem. It's a big
Mm.
problem that we face. Uh, you know, the northern region, inclusion of women, youth in planning stage is really difficult. Most times
Yeah.
you include them, but they are being excluded. Even in their own mind, they are already excluded. And
Mm.
most times what we just do is we are conscious of that fact. We are just conscious to push it and push it. It's it gets to a point where we can no longer push it. And this is the challenge of women and youth being included in planning stage. And it's still a big problem that I know
Mm.
that it will take time for us to really solve this problem. For people, for men, especially the older men, who start seeing the ideas, or will start embracing, women and youth, even in the planning stage, especially decision making. So if I one example is, I remember the last time we did a project in what's the name of this state? Borno State. Yeah, Borno. And there were women in attendance. And anytime the men talk and you ask the woman, they were like, yes, it's fine. Everything is okay. It's okay. Everything they said was okay. But when we now separated her from them to another women group, she was saying something different. She was countering
Mm.
them like, no, what they said was not good for them and the lies is not good. And you'll be shocked. I could remember too, there was one, focus group discussion. As a man, when you can't talk to a woman for a focus group discussion, a man must be present there. So you use a woman to talk to women. But even when sometimes the people discussing, maybe stakeholders engagement, are women and talking to women, you see some men sitting down there. And I remember a case when a man was telling us what the women want. It's a project that deals with women, it's not men. As a man, I didn't have the lived experience of that project. And this man was authoritatively telling us the things that the women we want. Me as a
Mm.
man, I know that what he was saying wouldn't work. But the women were saying, yes, it's correct. Yes, it was correct. But in the real sense, it wasn't correct. So
Mm.
it's still a problem. And one of the things for us to solve it is we continue to sensitize people where people are gender sensitive, gender aware, where we bring men to see their gender bias. I always mention that the bias starts from we being unconscious of our bias. One of
Yeah.
it is one example I did when I was doing a project with the CBI, and one of the company, I asked them, if a pregnant woman comes to you and say he needs a work, a secretariat work in your company, what will you do? And you're like, no, I won't give her the job. Oh. She's
Mm.
very heavy, needs to
Mm.
rest at home because especially when she's heavy, she needs to rest, she needs more rest because ah, it will be stressing her coming home. And I told her, I said, that's being discriminatory. She was like, no, she's just trying to help her. So she wasn't gender aware. She didn't know what she was doing was wrong until
Mm.
we made her realize what she was doing. And she realized that, oh, she didn't know that. A decision, when we make decision for others, thinking that, oh, a pregnant woman should not be able to do secretariat work. Let her go and stay and give birth. After she has given birth, she can come. That's been discriminatory. So these are things that we need more gender sensitive training or awareness so that people know the consequences of gender blind projects. There are a lot of
Mm.
gender blind projects. Uh, there, are, there was this solar project I saw in one community, and I saw the solar project, and they use it for pumping water and the likes, and in the north. And I was like, okay, for this project, how will women operate it?
Mm.
They didn't know. They didn't even factor that. They never thought about it in the project design because
Mm.
the
Mm.
farmers they interact with are men. So they developed it for men farmers. But in the mind, they developed it for farmers. And so when we understand the fact that it is not only men that are farmers, if you ask
Mm.
anybody now, the farmers you are working with, what are their characteristics? The next thing you say, they will tell you, including maybe some expert, they will tell you, oh, the farmers I'm working with, they are very agile, they do things, this. All the characteristics they will give you is a male farmer.
Mm.
So that is what, anytime you mention farmers, it's an unconscious bias. It's very unconscious to us. Until we start seeing that unconscious bias, we come to conscious bias, that we are conscious of our bias, that we are
Yeah.
bringing stakeholders together. We are conscious of the fact that we need to include women. That's when you are
Mm.
including women. That you are conscious of that fact. We need to include women. You are bringing decision makers, you are choosing them in the community. You are saying, no, we need to include women and youth They need to participate. They need to
Yeah.
also contribute. They need to vote. Their voices need to be heard. That is
Yeah.
when you see us. We are bridging the gap
Yeah.
because we are not having more men that's conscious of their bias, including women. Because some women
Mm.
who are not conscious of their bias, they believe
Mm.
that is how it should be. So we need more sensitization where we can mainstream gender, where people will see, where others see men, will see women as decision makers too, that they
Yeah.
can vote, that they are rational.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we unconsciously say, what does she want to say? It's a it's
Mm.
it's a bias. It's it's a bias. It's in our mind. We feel women are emotional, so they can't make logical. They are not logical. But that's a sexist. You are being sexist. Women are
Yeah.
brilliant. Women are great. They are great planner. Women can make decisions. They can make
Yeah.
rational decisions. Women can, they can hold positions. It's a
Yeah.
reality. They have brain. They have brain
Mm.
like me. They have
Mm.
two ends. They can break cola. Don't mind me. They can break cola. I heard that when they say only men break cola. Sorry for my viewer. I know some people will disagree with me. But it's a cultural thing. Women can
Yeah.
break cola. That's why they also have two hands. They can
Mm.
break cola. We need to get to that point where we are being gender aware and we are aware
Mm.
of our gender bias. We come to that consciousness. We move from the consciousness of bias to consciousness of unbiased, so that at the end of the day we become unconscious unbiased. And that is it.
Yeah.
So we need more sensitization and we need to be
Mm.
sensitized more. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Uh, I know that you are a lead strategist with over 30 years of experience, but I also know that in some of your projects, you've also had more or less like things not going as planned, right? Because there must be one or two. In those 13 years, there should be one story of you, things not going as planned. Because, I think one of the reasons why, as much as I appreciate people sharing their success story, I think people should also share their challenging story. Why? Because so that someone going through that phase or that process, experiencing what you had experienced at that time, that was like more or less like a challenging time. If the person is going through it, they don't feel like it's just happening to them, or the stars over their head is not aligning, or village people is after them, so it gives them hope that I'm not alone in this thing. Somebody has experienced it, they did not die, so me, I will not die. So I want you to sort of work us through a time where a project that you were handling didn't go as planned. What were the lessons that you learned from that experience about resilience and just adaptation with regards to agricultural projects?
Okay, I'm trying to figure to remember a field project. Yes, in my experience, I've had field projects. Field project, yeah. Some were very emotional to me. They were so emotional.
Wow.
Some failed as a result of negligence. Some failed as a
Mm,
result of wrong assumptions. And
mm,
yeah, I think one of the projects that I think that I could remember vividly that failed was a personal project. It was a project we implemented for a client, and I think one of the thing that went wrong in the project was a communication gap. So
mm,
projects, uh, because sometimes what most people don't really talk about in project management is the communication between the person funding or the organization funding and those are implementing. Sometimes
mm,
we do not communicate rightly. So our interest, you put everything written down, but in the real sense, there's unwritten objectives,
Quotations, yes.
expectations. Those unwritten expectations, many a times, they are more satisfying than the written expectations. So, as a consultant, you need to know those unwritten expectations, especially when you are
Mm,
working with individual organization, not multinationals. So
Yeah.
you need to align with it. If you don't align
Mm,
with it, you see that there's a communication gap. And immediately there is
mm,
that communication gap, tendency that the project will fail is very, very high. So we had poor communication, and
mm,
there was poor implementation and monitoring, and it led to
mm.
the failure of the project. Wasted time, wasted resources, and but
Yeah.
we were able to manage our reputation. Yeah, we were able to manage, we are able to compensate for it. Yeah,
Mm,
you have to compensate. And one of the way we compensated, we had to lose part of our own uh payments. We had to, we voluntarily lost it. Or gave it up. We voluntarily gave it up so that
mm,
we also feel the pain of the project, the funder. So that was one,
mm,
and that was about many years ago, very, very far. So we learned
mm.
from that project. It was really, really was a trying time for us. So we learned from the
Yeah.
project. And another project that I am aware of or I know of was a project that I'm not going to mention the name. It was a very big project. And so what made the project fail was the 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 funder, the assumptions that the project was built on was faulty. So the
Mm.
assumption the project was built, I'm sorry, I can't give an example so that I don't
No problem.
I don't talk about the project, because if I give an example, some people might know the project. It was a wrong assumption.
Mm.
Let me give you an example. Yes, I think I can give you an example. Building a project that every farmer in the rural community can afford 100,000 naira per month.
Nah.
So, so the project was built on that assumption. 100,000 was like, when you say 100, it's like, let's say $70, $70 or it's
Mhm.
$60, can afford $60. Now,
Mm.
when I don't want to say so much, $60 is not a lot of money to be, you can afford it in the Western country.
Not
So
here.
when you give that, because you view the Western country, the countryside is like the
Yeah.
rural area.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Yeah.
there's nobody living there that cannot afford $60 a month. Then that assumption you used to develop a project from scratch. Then you implemented, and there's nobody subscribing. You know,
Mm.
it
Mm.
it was a real failure. Although, at time I had to say this project can't work. But there are more more experienced consultant on the project, like, no, they can work, it's work. We've done something like that, and we all knew that it was going to fail, and actually it failed forward. Let me use that word. It failed forward. It was a really total mess. So wrong assumption is one of the most projects, even apart from the one I worked on or the project I have maybe evaluated, that ever failed has always been wrong assumptions many times and poor communication. But wrong
Mm.
assumptions has always been more, because the wrong assumption came from the wrong data collection on the field. So because there was a
Mm.
wrong data collection on the field, they found out that these are the needs of the people and this is what they want and this is what we give to them. So it's always a big problem. So for me, what I've learned on those field projects, lesson learned, is that sometimes you have to step out. Like, I don't want to work on a field project again. Like, immediately I get to know now, from the beginning, when I see the assumptions are wrong and they still want us to go ahead, I just walk out. I don't want to. I know that I don't need to put my effort in project that's not going to succeed, since we already made a mistake, but we need to
Yeah.
patch it. I think that's one lesson learned, is to work out, because sometimes when project fail, it's too emotion for you as a
Yeah.
consultant. Beyond what you
Yeah.
are going to be paid. It's not about payment. It's,
Yeah.
sometimes, especially when you are building your career from scratch, when project fail, One thing also is that you say less of it. Apart
Yeah.
from money, so it's not a project that when they tell you what have been your achievement, it's not something you want to say about. So it gives you like a setback, sort of like I spent 1 year to achieve nothing. So it's a lesson that emotionally you get attached. Sometimes it will affect you mentally. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people get to a very worst state. So one thing you learn from it is when projects you know that they are going to fail and nobody's listening to you, everybody knows, feel that they know better than you, and you are sure of it. For your mental health sake, sometimes you just have to step out. Just tell them, I'm not
Mm.
doing. I don't want to be involved on it. It's always good
Mm.
sometimes to be off. So again, is that do a periodic evaluation. If a project is not working, be sincere with it, be sincere about it. And
Yeah.
thirdly, when you know that you are the one that messed up, the one that gave the wrong thing, you need to learn how to be accountable,
Full of, yes,
apologize
full
to
of,
the team.
yeah.
Let them know that no, I made a wrong decision. I
Yeah.
advised you wrongly, and I'm taking up
Mm-hmm.
this. It also helps you to protect your, when you own up to that, you own up to
Mm-hmm.
it, people respect. And I
Yeah.
think that's some of the lessons I've learned, because beyond a failed project, you need to be accountable. Beyond the failed project, your image matters, especially if you're a
Yeah.
consultant. Your image
Yeah.
matters. And that is one thing, is that you need to own up, let them know what you think you can do better, to salvage the situation if it's still salvageable. And sometimes if it's
Mm-hmm.
not salvageable, just tell them. And lastly, I did a rice project some years ago, and it's in Ogun State. I mentioned the state, Ogun State. And I was brought in after the project has been developed. Project has been developed, everything was done. All what I needed to do was to monitor the project.
Mm.
And immediately I joined the project team. Uh, I was like an independent monitoring person. And after the first phase of the planting, I knew the project is going to fail. Like
Mm.
it's going to fail, totally fail. They've spent about 15% of the project fund, yeah, for the project.
Mm.
And I told him, immediately I saw that it was, what I saw, it was like a pure scam. It was like a pure scam that looked like a project. And I just had to speak to the director and said, you guys, you've done the first stage of this project. It remains the second stage and the third stage, then the fourth stage. At this fourth stage, I think we need to count our losses and stop this project. They listened to me
Mm.
and they stopped the project. And it was very refreshing. Although I'm going to lose money because I'm not going to do it. But the integrity, up to
Equity,
today,
yeah.
I still work with organization. Your integrity, my integrity, they respect my person. And they love the
Yeah.
fact that they allowed them to waste the remaining money. They were able to
Mm.
save the remaining money. If we had gone ahead, they would have lost everything. So sometimes when you
Yeah.
see a project going to fail, you just stand up, damn the consequences that you are going to lose salary. That's fine, because the project is going to put on hold. Your contract is going to stop, but your
Yeah.
integrity is still there. And I think we need more consultant that has integrity. We need more consultant that will be honest with their work. We need more consultant that can stand and say, no, this project, the whole idea is not workable beyond what you are going to get. And I think that's the generation of consultant that I wish to see more from among the younger ones. In- People with integrity. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like how you shared your own personal stories with it, and just capping it up with saying that um, consultants have to choose the side of being people of integrity. Once you know that this will not work, just say it. Even though it might look like, oh, you're going to lose money because maybe the contract or the project might be stopped or anything. But that integrity in the long term, you're playing the long game. In the long term will serve you better than just this quick, remuneration or money you're going to make now, and that's the end of it. Thank you so much
Yes.
for also sharing that very valuable
You're
lesson
welcome.
with our audience. So we're wrapping up soon, but I have a couple of questions more.
Okay.
Um, yes, yes. I know that you need to go. I know you need to go
No, no,
and
no,
rest.
no.
But
No, don't worry. I'm not in haste. I'm not in this.
Okay,
I've already prepared for
fantastic.
you for maybe up to 2 hours. I've already
Ẹ
made
ṣé,
up my mind
ẹ
that
ṣé o, ẹ ṣé. Let me speak this more Yoruba than I know. Ẹ ṣé gan. All right, fantastic. So my next question at this time is, how do you bridge the gap between strategy and execution, especially working, within rural areas where infrastructure and access to like educations may be limited. So how do you sort of bridge that gap? Because I know that it might be challenging sometimes, but how do you work around that?
though it's always good that those that build the strategy should have field experience. See, it's always the
Mm,
best
mm,
way
mm.
when people who have never visited a rural community build strategy. It's always like it's
They're
meant to
not conscious of
fail.
some realities. Yeah.
Now, okay, let me give you an example that I see the mistake a lot of people make. You know, agri-tech is a in thing. Everybody talks about agri-tech, agri-tech, agri-tech.
Yeah.
So, and most times you see what the agri-tech many of people talk about is more of applications.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they tell you, oh, they have an application that will help the farmer when the farmer input this, it will help them to predict this, predict this, predict this, predict this. And I look at, okay, let's think about a village. I don't-
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's think about a village. How many
Mm-hmm.
of those farmers actually have a smartphone? How many of the
Yeah.
farmers have a smartphone? Let's start from that. How many of these farmers have a smartphone?
Yeah.
That's where so farmers don't have the smartphone. So you are only building the app for farmers in semi-urban or urban areas, not for the rural
Mm.
people. Okay, if they
Mm.
now have smartphone, how many of them have access to maybe 4G internet?
Yeah.
Connectivity is poor. In some places,
Mm.
it's non-existence.
Mm.
You don't have access to internet. So it simply
Yeah.
means that if your market size, if you are saying your market size is 200 million or 50 million farmers, how many of them, what's the internet penetration in those communities? So
Mm.
immediately you realize that their strategy, any strategy you want to build is just for a wrong market.
Yeah.
So you need to understand that. I remember the first when we started building our app, which is called Farm Drought, is actually for our extension officer. It's for our extension officer. The first error that our app guys did was they developed the whole app finished, and I was like, okay, I know it's offline, and they're like, no, that is
Mm.
online. It's online. I was like,
Mm.
why? Why will
Mm.
you build an app for online? The app guys, they are tech guys. They've never been to the rural area. They've never.
Yeah.
So they developed the whole app thinking online and like no. Then everything was dismantled again for another how many
Mm.
years, almost months, to look for how to build an app that can be offline. When you are on the farm, you can collect all the data on the field. Then when you get to the town, it can sync, but it is stored on your phone. It can sync
Yeah.
when you have internet. That is a
Yeah.
perfect app that we need. So
Yeah.
strategy must actually be developed by people who understand that reality, the field, especially the rural
Mm.
communities. So, and we need to also have our markets. It might not be all the rural communities. There might be
Yeah.
we have different characteristics of the rural communities. So, if you
Mm-hmm.
are building the app for the northern farmers, the farmers in the northern region, or the north central, or the southwest, or southeast, there are different realities. They have different
Yeah.
reality. Some of their realities are similar. So any
Yeah.
strategy we want to build must be based on these realities. So,
Yeah.
and that is how where strategy can actually be implementable. But strategies that does not reflect this current reality or state of the farmers in the rural community, it always fail. It doesn't
Yeah.
yield its result. Every strategy
Mm.
have a strategy objectives.
Yeah.
It has different activities. It has different
Mm-hmm.
approaches or methodologies they want to use. It has the
Mm-hmm.
targets or deliverables. Yes, you've made that in your classroom or in your brainstorming session. You've done all those things. But does it meet the reality of the farmers? If, for instance, I could remember there was a time where we had a very good idea, and that was the interactive voice messaging. So interactive voice messaging is more of like, you call the customer service of MTN and you dial
Yeah.
one this, you call them and the likes. We wanted to introduce to the farmers, I think, right? I mean, a brilliant idea. They can speak to extension workers and the like. And the reality dawned on us when the uh the airline company, I don't say the airline, the what's they called them, the mobile company,
Telco.
well,
Yeah.
eh, like the
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 telco.
the
Yeah.
the
Telco.
telco.
Yeah.
Telco were like, okay, this social amount of money for this per month. And we're like, okay, who pays for it? Then we say, okay, farmers pay for it. So for 1 minute, then when we saw how much a farmer pays for 1 minute to make a call, I told myself, I said, no farmer is going to use it.
Mm-mm.
It just died down. But the idea is a brilliant idea for funded projects. Yes, there's organizations. I know a couple of organizations that actually launched that service. Today, it's dead because it
Mm.
is not sustainable. It's not
Telco.
sustainable.
Yeah.
So strategy that does not align to the reality of the farmers is always dead on arrival. It's DOA. It's
Mm.
dead on arrival. So we always need to balance the both reality of
Mm.
farmers. Like for instance, now we're doing a sustainable certification program, which we have been doing for the past 5 years, 6 years now for different organizations. When
Yeah.
we want to train farmers, we know farmers must understand what biodiversity is. We in
Yeah.
the requirement is that we must promote biodiversity to the farmers. Now, when we go to the farm to train farmers, farmers does not understand what biodiversity is.
Yeah.
So one thing is this: we have our strategy language, we have the farmers language. So
Yeah.
every strategy we've developed, we translate them into farmers language. So what we do
Mm.
is, okay, we want you to plant at least one tree in your farm, at the edge of your farm. We know that
Mm.
planting one tree is encouraging biodiversity. So they are already promoting
Yeah.
biodiversity. That's the language.
Yeah.
So when you ask farmers, how are you promoting biodiversity? They don't know. But if you
Yeah.
ask them, plant any tree or anything, they'll say, yes, we planted one tree. Why are you planting tree? So that it will help provide
Handshake.
shade. So
Yeah.
that is about diversity for farmers. So most times what I
Mm.
encourage that beyond the classroom or brainstorming session that we have strategy, we always, for us to implement these strategies, it has to be translated to farmers language, and farmers
Mm.
language is simple language. Like I give
Mm.
example, there is no farmer, or hardly majority of farmers in Africa, if you tell them use 100 mil per knapsack, majority of them does not understand what 100 mil is. But when you tell them 100 mil, they'll say yes, they know. Now let them measure the chemical. 100 mil, they don't know 100, they'll just
For the
pour.
entire thing.
But if I'm working with farmers in Nigeria and I say pour 18 milk, or let me say the bottle of, I'm just giving an example, that's not the correct one, a bottle of lacasera cover, add two to
Mm-hmm.
your
The cap.
nafs.
Yes. Just.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
two to eat. Even assuming that each of them is 50-50, if you add two to eat or three to eat, it's you that is going to measure it. That okay, what is 100 mil? You realize that is a cap. A cap could be 100 mil. I'm giving you example. It's not accurate.
Yeah.
So if they
Yeah.
know, I'll just add 2 mil because they can relate with that. They can just add that. But you know that it's 100 mil. Do you understand me?
Mm.
Pour 5 grams of fertilizer. They don't know what 5 grams. They've never seen a 5 gram being measured before. Many of them. So you need to now translate it to farmer's language. What is 5 gram? Look for something that when you measure is 5 gram that they can relate with. It could be 7 up bottle. Use three,
Mm.
maybe three is 5 gram. That's when you say, oh, that's 7 up cover. Use three, but two caps. That is 5 gram or 15 gram. So it's you need to help translate any strategy into farmers language, and that is when it can be applicable or can be implemented at farm level. But if you are using
Mm,
big grammar, nobody, they will shake their head, but you won't see impact. And that is it. So
mm.
strategy, there must be field experience so that reality on the field is incorporated into strategy. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like how you put it. I think there's someone I interviewed that talked about that even the solutions that we provide, we need to look for a way to ensure that we bring it to the localized context.
Yes.
We are not speaking the language that is going over their head. We should help them see what exactly,
Yes.
and also I like the fact when you talk about the person creating the strategy has to be amongst the people, not necessarily be with them, but someone that understands field experience. So you are not creating a strategy that will not work
Yes.
when it gets to the field. And I think that this app thing,
Yeah.
especially at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about it like tech is an enabler. It has to have worked on ground first. We're not using technology to amplify it. If it's not working on ground,
Yes.
there's no point bringing technology to it. You're just going to waste, money.
Yeah.
And just hearing you talk about that, it made me think about the fact that, we need homegrown solutions, just like what you had mentioned earlier, which is Africa, it is Africans that will create the solutions that Africans need. Homegrown solution. We have to look at, okay,
Mm.
what are our realities and how can we ensure that we are creating solutions that are in alignment with this reality. Just hearing you talk about, the telco saying it was going to cost that amount for people to be calling, the extension worker on the phone, like, we can't do that. They should definitely there should definitely be another way. But then I feel like when we talk about innovation, to be honest, like all this, hearing this conversation and just listening to experts every single time, it gets me thinking. Like when we talk about innovation, these are the things you should be looking out for. Like how are we actually solving real? It's something I look at it. I feel like most times it's as though that the solutions that are being created are just facing one direction, just one direction. And meanwhile, there are so
Yeah.
many challenges that even just look at this extension thing you talked about. It is marginalized, but it's something that would be impactful. Once it can be solved in one, taken and use it to solve a problem in one area, across the entire 36 states, it can
Yeah.
be utilized.
It can be replicated. Yes.
Yes. Man, you have a long you see, it's good to talk to a strategist. You're just awakening my thinking cap, just thinking, 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 thinking.
Yeah. It's
You know,
actually
you know,
one thing I also see that something drives innovation is the
yeah,
interest of the people.
yeah,
So who is
yeah.
driving the innovation is very important. Uh, you know,
Mm,
innovation respond to market needs. So
yes,
it's the market needs. And sometimes, see, there are a lot of innovation. The young people in Nigeria are in Nigeria and Africa generally, we have the most brilliant people, like
yes, we
brilliant
do.
people. Young
Yes.
people in Africa, they are very energetic, very
Mm,
skillful, very, you know, very adorable, very they are innovators. They want to solve the problems, but they need environment to
mm,
strive. And that is one
mm,
thing. We need environment to fly. We need environment
mm,
that we don't. Young people in Africa are just wonderful. When you speak with people, you realize the way they think, the knowledge.
mm,
But we need environment to strive. We need support. Yes,
yeah,
some innovation might not look like we need them now. It's the future. Like for instance,
mm,
the drone technology is a future. We
yeah,
cannot continue to spray the way we are spraying. There's a
mm,
future in drone technology. But right
yeah,
now, the market is still small. But that
yeah,
is where we need the government. How can the
yeah,
government invest so that you don't kill such a technology now?
yeah,
We need it in the future. The apps that I mentioned, we need them, but we need to
yes,
develop our connectivity, our infrastructure, internet infrastructure needs to be
yeah,
developed at the community, at the rural community level. Is the future.
mm-hmm,
There are so many
mm-hmm,
things that, yes, right now it may looks like this innovation does not make sense. It's not sellable. yet because of our current situation. But we need to nurture them.
Yeah.
We do not allow the dream to die. We need to
Yeah.
nurture those innovations because we will need them someday. And that is the truth. We still need them.
Mm. Fantastic, fantastic. You know, speaking of innovation and technology, this just segues into my next question, which is, what are like some of the roles do you think that digital technology play in designing and scaling projects, agricultural projects across Africa, and how can we just sort of ensure that these tools are accessible to the grassroots? Thinking of this question, I am also thinking about it.
One thing in the 21st century, I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, I can.
The 21st century needs information.
Mm,
We cannot develop, we cannot grow, we cannot increase productivity without relevant information.
yeah.
And in generating information, disseminating information,
Mm-hmm.
using of information, and managing information is one great thing that digital technology has provided.
Yeah.
It can spread wide.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
extension officers can only meet maybe 50 or 100 farmers in a day, which is not
Mm.
possible. He wants to kill himself. But my
Exactly.
digital tool can meet more than 1 million farmers in a day if they have access
Yeah.
to it. Let me give you
Yeah.
an example. We needed some farmers, we working with some farmers to distribute prices of products, and they got text messages on their phone. And these are thousands of farmers that got text message on their phone. And with text message, they were able to respond. And with that, we were able to get with less than 24 hours, we got all the farmers that actually have products. This is just a simple
Mm.
technology. Now imagine the field officer or extension officer will be visiting each of them. You know
Mm.
how many hours it will take? And that's the essence of digital technology. And a simple USSD, this USSD, this small phone, it could go a long
Yeah.
way. It could go a
Yeah.
long way. We don't need the complicated, complex technology. Yes, we move
Yeah.
from simple technology to the complex ones. And
Yeah.
this is where we in Africa, we need to build structure on how to use the simple technology to achieve productivity. And it's very important. Without this, information is key. What I gave you example is just market information, where they know the
Yeah.
prices of products. We need that because without information, you can't survive in 21st century.
Yeah.
You can't strive. You can't be a successful farmer. You must have adequate information, relevant information, and it must be timely. And that is where digital technology comes in. But who pays for it? It's still the big question. Who pays for this technology? And that is why we have young people now coming into the space to solve the problem of who pays for it. Like our own organization is a private agri extension company. Farmers don't pay for the
Yeah.
services because many of the
Mm.
farmers cannot afford the service.
Hold it. Yeah.
We've developed a model where businesses pay for the service, but most businesses that can pay for the services are businesses that needs a particular services, not all the services, but
Yeah.
particular services. For instance, exporters. Exporters want to do sustainable certification because of traceability. They want to
Yeah.
export to the EU, they want to export to America. But to access this market, they need to prove that their products can be traceable to where it is produced.
Used.
So
Yeah.
by offering that services to exporter, is he or she is willing to pay for it. The same thing. So that is always the problem. Who pays for extension services? Because after
Yeah.
the funding for extension services stopped by World Bank, it has always been a problem. Who paid for it? Who pays for it? So, and that is why we have young people right now looking for different business models to find ways of how farmers can access information using digital technology. I know it's
Yeah.
still no, it's still work in progress. There have been
Yeah.
successful stories. I know there have been a lot of setbacks because of
Yeah.
infrastructure, but with
Mm-hmm.
time, I know that we are going to solve this problem, and it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Without it, information becomes harder, and that is why digital technology is the present and is the future, as far as
Yeah.
century is concerned. Thank you.
Fantastic. 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 Ah, okay. I know you had talked about a bit about young people wanting to seek what would be like the best, business model, even as they try to venture into creating solutions. So my next question is, towards that direction. For like a young professional listening to us on this call that wants to, start out like an impactful project in agriculture, but sort of they feel like they lack like the funding on how to do it or the network on how to do it, what would you say to them should be their starting point?
Okay, I think for first point, the starting point is the idea itself. Get
Mm,
your idea right, get your data right, get your idea, the solution right, then look for an accelerator program. Right now, there are a lot of accelerator programs supporting young
mm,
people, people with ideas, people at their early stage, mid stage. There are a lot of accelerator programs. Let them help you to refine the idea. They have coaches, mentors there that could help to, refine those beautiful ideas. Enroll in one, get on one of them, let them support you in the accelerator program. And for the
mm,
accelerator program, you get the skill because you need skill.
mm.
Apart
Yeah,
from one thing is the product skill, the product development, and the business development. So
yeah,
product development is your product, but the business development is the way you structure your company, and that's those things are those skills are important.
yeah,
When to fight tax, what is taxation, what is this, those are business development skills. So there's a
yeah,
product skills which you get, and also skill business development. Then you launch, and sometimes some accelerator program they give you some pre-seed capital to start. So you launch with it and you build a good team. You need to have a good team to work with, you know, have coaches or mentor. You can mentor under people that have gone ahead, let them mentor you, be accountable to them, you know, submit yourself to them, quote and unquote, because you know it helps you better. And sometimes even your coaches or your mentors even invest in your business, but sometimes they don't, but they give you their
yeah,
experience free of charge. So you need to work with them, listen to them, let them guide you. But one mistake you shouldn't make is that don't get don't be mentored by somebody that have never even done a business in his life. Okay, I've
mm,
never managed a business. For instance,
mm,
you could be mentored by somebody that have managed a business. It might not be the founder, but he has managed a
mm.
business. That
Business,
you
yeah,
can get mentored by them. But somebody that has never managed a business, I've never been in a role where he makes decision, and you feel that okay, the person has been maybe an working in an organization but has not gotten to the position of managerial. There is limitation of what the person can share. What that person
yeah,
could have more is more of technical skills. You could learn
yeah,
technical skills, but when it comes to managerial skills, business skills, it's good for you will be coached or mentored by somebody that is experienced in that has managed a business with, or that has been trained on it. But sometimes training, there's limitation to what training and experience is a two
yeah,
different thing.
yeah,
If you get the two, great. If you get one, no problem. But you need to be coached. Yeah, you need mentors to build to avoid certain mistakes.
yeah.
Go ahead by yourself. Oh. You may decide not to have mentors. Oh. You can do trial by error, but it makes your journey longer.
Journey
It's a
tedious and long. Yes,
longer, it makes it longer, but you will still succeed as far as you are resilient. But it's always better to go through that process. It really helps you. It helps your mental health. I could remember then that I just get frustrated. So sometimes, I found ways to pressure. I found ways. You see me going to the gym, I go swimming, just go to cinema. That those are just inside gist. Don't let me tell you inside gist now. That you have to go to.
No, no, but at
Yeah,
least somebody is hearing it now and then feel like, okay, I
yes,
think these are
yeah. You
mechanisms to
could have.
manage.
You
I
could have.
like the fact that
Sometimes
you're
it
talking
doesn't
about
make sense.
mental health. It's a very important thing. Sometimes I think that when people hear the word mental health, people are quick to think of, is this person going gaga or going no. They are no, most Nigerians, that's like their perception. And so
Yes.
there's sometimes that like pressures of life or things not working can get to you to a point that you almost want to question your sanity. And so, like I
Yes.
mentioned earlier, if you then hear someone that has gone through that, then tell you, okay, oh boy, you're not going crazy. Oh, it's just part of the
No, you're not.
process. It
It's
has to
part of the
happen.
process.
Exactly. So they don't feel like what I'm experiencing is just unique to me. I don't know how to handle it. So that's why I
Nothing.
like the fact that you're sharing it as well. So thank you for sharing that.
No, the thing is, I've actually been able to manage my mental health over the years.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, maybe this is not the time. Also, there's a part of the story that many at times you don't hear, especially for me as a consultant, that I travel a lot.
Yeah.
Averagely in a year, when I don't have any project, I travel about 150 days in a year. Yeah.
Oh my
Like
God.
this year now, I'm not at home. This year, I think I've traveled almost in the last this May, I think I've spent close to 3 months plus. Yeah, around three months roughly outside. Yes, you're just traveling. And
Wow.
sometimes you are traveling in places where you don't understand the language, you don't understand the food. It's a big deal. It's a
Yeah.
different ball game. It's a different. I
Entirely.
can talk about this in the next 3 hours about how you feel there. How do you survive? Yeah, it's for
Yeah.
roles that are more. Yeah, we are founders, but we are also field person. We love the field. We go to the
Yeah.
field. Uh, in the last few time now, months now, I've been reducing my field work, but before I used to, and that you can say I've reduced and I'm still going for almost 3 months. So it's a your the mental pressure you have is very different. See,
Yeah.
just imagine you're in a country. When we started in Togo, I don't know where you get to know about the Togo. When we started in Togo, I was in a different environment where I
Yeah.
can't speak French. I have to eat the
Mm.
local food that I'm not used to. Sometimes
Yeah.
you feel like you want to communicate this and you can't speak French and you need to take your Google translation. It's a different
Google
ball game.
Translate to the rescue.
It's a different ball game. But as a business owner also, to expand, that's another story. Business expansion. When do you expand? Yeah, don't let me talk about my expansion now. I think that's the only one you know. There are other ones that you didn't mention that I'm not going to mention now. It's how do you expand? When do you expand? When do you decide to expand? Where do you expand to? Do you leave Nigeria to another country? What? So it's another ball game entirely again. So it
Yeah.
comes with its own challenges. But as a founder, just know that yes, when you are already everything, you get to a point where you start talking to yourself. Something is wrong. You need to find a way to relax. Sometimes
Yeah.
you can go, to the gym. It's part of me now. Go to the gym 1 hour, your mental health,
Yeah.
wow, everything clear.
Yes.
Sometimes,
Yes.
yes, there was a time to. I'm not a movie person. I started every Friday evening. Immediately I close my laptop by 5. By 7, you see me watching movies on Netflix. Yeah, I watch movies. I'm not a movie person. I started learning how to watch movies, and by Monday, my mind is clear. Everything is clear. Then I take up the thing again. It comes out. So you also need to find a way to, especially you're married, you bond with your family. You need to create that time. It's another life entirely. When you are married
Yeah.
and when you are single as a founder, and also when you are married and having children, is a different ball game
Mm,
too. So you need to learn how to balance everything, or else you just feel like the whole world is on you and you're about to
mm,
crumble. And also you need to
mm.
take care of your health. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have health challenges. Those are another thing entirely when we talk about health. How do you manage your health? Especially you're a field person. How do you manage
Yeah.
your health? Uh, it's a real bug. But one thing is that whatsoever thing you are feeling or going through is somebody has gone through it before. It
Yes.
can be,
Yes.
and it won't be the last.
Yes. These two shall pass.
It will pass.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Mr.
You're
Babatunde, for
welcome.
just giving us
You're welcome.
insightful, detailed answer to that. And this is our final question for today. I know I've taken a lot of your time, but it's
It's all
okay.
right.
It's once in a while. Thank you. So finally, what's one mindset shift or like core principle do you believe that every aspiring African agripreneur or project leader must embrace to be able to build a food secure and prosperous future for the continent?
I didn't get that the principles
Okay.
or values, right?
What one mindset shift or core principle do you believe that an aspiring African agripreneur or project leader must embrace to be able to build a food secure or prosperous future for the continent?
I think one mind shift, the mind shift that we need to embrace is that farming must not be rain fed. I think it's
Mm,
one that we
it
always
shouldn't be
believe
system.
farming should be rain fed. It shouldn't be rain fed. We should be able to produce food all through the year. It's still,
Mm,
I can't imagine after years and years, we still believe that most of our food products are being produced during rain season. It shouldn't be. What rain is giving us is water. There is nothing,
mm,
what rain is giving us is water. What we need is water. We need alternative. We need to find uh, how do we solve this problem of water? Are we doing water harvesting? Do we want to do reservoirs? Do we want to build more dams? Do we want to have more farmlands to dams? How can we make our dams working? In Nigeria, how do we make our dams working? And this, we need to have that mind shift that farming is not rainfall. Farming should not be rain fed alone. It should be all through the year.
mm.
We need to change. For us to have food, be food secure, you know how many minutes where we have spoken now? You know how many children they've given birth to in Nigeria? So you can see we have more mouths to feed. We can't be a
Yeah.
food secure nation that during the dry season we won't produce food. We only produce
Mm,
food during rainy season. You know, I mentioned that my friend always say that farms hunger is not seasonal. Food production should not be seasonal.
you love
It
because
should
yeah.
never be seasonal. So we need to shift our mind that we only produce food during rainy season. You know, that's what is
Mm,
in school now. That agriculture crop is produced when you say rainy season. Crops should not be
ah.
produced, will not be cultivated during rainy season. We
Mm-hmm.
should shift from crops should be produced during rainy season to crops should be produced all through the year. And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
a big mind shift that we need to push. And two, the second mind shift that I've always been advocating, I always speak with it, tell my farmers, is that agriculture is not a culture, it is a business. Yeah, it could be, we could have agriculture there. Culture is the way of life of people. Culture is not where people make money. Culture is the way
Mm,
of life of people. Agriculture is not it shouldn't be a culture, it's a business.
mm,
You are not in
mm.
you are not in agriculture because it is your grandfather actually produced. So you too must also produce cocoa because your grandfather did cocoa, and
Mm,
not necessarily to be profitable. No, agric is a business. Agribusiness is a business. It's a business,
yeah.
and we need to take it as a business. There is cost, there is revenue. We need to improve our
Yes.
productivity. We need to see it as a business. We don't say farmers don't need money. Farmer needs money. Every business needs to progress. They need to expand. They need to
Yeah.
expand. And that is why this is a mind shift at the farm level. Farmer must change their mind to see agriculture as first a business to make
Yeah.
profit from and to live comfortable on. I think that's the second one. And Do I have a third one that the mind shift? I think let me leave that. I think I have one mind third one, but I've forgotten now. So let me that too is okay for now.
Fantastic. I think that that's a very good um, mindset shift in terms of stop thinking about it as how our fathers and mothers did it, a way of life, but thinking about it
Yeah.
from the business perspective. Because if you are not profitable in something, there's no drive to want to continue. Then it gets to a point where you're like, why am I even you like wasting my time? Like this thing is not yielding anything for me. There should be something
Yes.
that commiserates me for the action and the work that I'm putting into. But like you mentioned, if it doesn't start as a mindset to say, okay, I'm in this as a business, it should be run as
Mm.
a business, that would not happen. That's like the very first mindset shift. And I think that's something that everyone should sort of take as a take home. You said a lot
Yeah.
of things, but they also need to think about that business part. Yes, that's how you stay. That's how you would stay sustainable. Because if there's no income coming in from what you're doing, how are you going to keep up with it? And so my very, I think I know I said final question, but what you said now has led me to this question, which is there was a part where you talked about when I asked you about the question of young people wanting to come into agriculture, and you said the very first start point is for them to like get proper training and refining the idea, also understanding business models and things. So my next question to you is, do you have like a mentorship program, a coaching program, or some sort of structured agro business program that you run that people can sort of take advantage of to learn some of these things? And if you do, how can they access it? I know you write
For
letters to
now,
farmer. I see your letters. You're reading thousands of letters. Guys, if you go to Mr. Olaiwaju's LinkedIn page, at least in a month, you should see at least three letters from him. Like that's when it's not so big, you should see at least
yes, it's
three
just
letters.
it's just once a week. It's just once a week. The letter is
Exactly.
once a week. Yeah. In a year, I write only 52.
Yeah, I said it. I said in a month they should see at least three letters. So I didn't even know it was a week because I know I see those letters. I see, and the letters
Okay.
they're not in hundreds now. They've passed hundreds already. So it's been
Yeah,
a
about
long time.
300 and something. It's about
Exactly,
399 now. 399.
exactly. So is there a platform that you have that those your letters that you send to your farmers has been condensed into a structured thing that people
So
can take advantage
yeah, for now, I would say I don't have a mentorship program. I
of?
used to
Okay.
have one, but it's a
What happens
time,
now?
but it's something,
Okay.
but it's a time really. But maybe if the demand is becoming high now, I
Mm.
could consider that again. Maybe I could
Okay.
consider, but for now, no. But it's something that
Okay.
I could consider. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. And so for people that want to take advantage of your services, how best can they connect with you? Your
Yes, they
consulting
connect with
service.
me on my LinkedIn. They connect with me on my
Okay.
LinkedIn at Babatunde Olarewaju. That's the first place to connect with me on LinkedIn. Then they could connect me email o.babatunde@futuxconsult.com. They could connect with me on Twitter. I think Babat 2011. They could connect with me on Facebook, Babatunde Olarewaju. So they can connect me anywhere.
Fantastic. So, guys, you see that he's the 21st century agro business person. He's on all the platforms. Please
Yeah.
do reach out to him. And most importantly, check out his newsletters, especially if you're like a person that is very keen about food productions. Please just check out his newsletters on his platform on LinkedIn, and you will definitely get like viable, important, insightful information from those letters. Mr. Babatunde, thank you so much for spending the
You're
last
welcome.
an hour, 15 minutes with us on the podcast
You're
today.
welcome.
It has just
You're
been
welcome.
an insightful learning experience for me. There are many things that you said today that even as I go back now, I'm going to be thinking. And interestingly, there was a guy there's a tech guy that I know that his master's thesis was something around creating a solution for what's it called, for agric extension solution. That's what his master's thesis was. He gave me the thesis work to look at.
Wow.
I'm just thinking that now that we've had this conversation, I'm going to go back to him. His name is Dr.
Okay.
Oluwaseun Omola. I'm going to go back to him and say, Egbon, we need to look at something. Though. Somebody has said something now. We have to look at this thing very well. What can we do?
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
good.
really, because no, really, because thinking about it, just hear you talk about it and saying, oh, that agro extension thing that you guys wanted to do, and the telco was just saying what it was going to cost, made me think of the fact that, you know, our innovation should not just be looking at one directions. There's so many,
Yeah.
so many
Yeah,
aspects
there's so
and so
many
many,
part of it. Yeah.
yeah, there's so many aspects and so many things, and these are like core issues that can be solved. And just like, okay, using homegrown solution, it might not be looking very technical structure, looking very pleasant in terms of the presentation, but does it actually solve a problem? Can we start out with something? I'm definitely
Something.
going to
Yeah.
have that conversation with Dr.
That'll be a good
Omola
one.
after this.
But you can always let me know
Yeah,
any type of any support that I can provide.
of course,
I'll be
I
willing
should.
to do
Of course,
that.
I would do. Because it's this conversation with you that has rekindled that. So when I'm done with this call, I'm going to hit up Dr. Bumala. I'm going to talk
It's all
about
right.
that.
That's good. So happy to
Thank
hear
you
that.
so much, sir. Thank you,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
thank you.
And do enjoy the rest of your day. And
All right, so you
bye.
too, sir. Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye.